Your brain doesn't think the way you think it does, and that's why you sometimes know things before you can explain why. A plain language broadcast on how cognition actually works, why intuition is real, why fear breaks it, and what to do about that. And this is all the stuff that science still hasn't caught up to, and I'm telling you right here today, and you are one of the first to actually know this. This is a revolutionary scientific breakthrough. You heard it here first. I want to tell you something I figured out about how your brain works that probably nobody has ever told you. It's going to explain a few things that have probably bothered you your whole life. Why some of your gut feelings have been right in ways you couldn't explain. Why other gut feelings have been catastrophically wrong in ways that felt just as certain. Why rumination feels like thinking but doesn't actually solve anything. Why some of your best ideas have arrived right before you fell asleep, or in the shower, or on a walk. Why fearful people make worse decisions ever when they're even smarter than everyone else. Why meditation, breath work, time in nature, and 100 other practices that look unrelated all seem to work. There's one mechanism underneath all of it, and once you see the mechanism, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing it in yourself and in everyone around you. Stay with me. This is going to be useful. Start with what most people think the brain does. Most people imagine their brain works something like a computer. Information comes in through the senses, the brain processes it, an answer comes out the other side. Stimulus, processing, response, one pass. If you've used a modern AI chatbot, you've seen this in action. You type a question in, the AI's network runs the question through its layers once, and an answer comes out. That's how those systems work. One forward pass, same network, same calculation every time. Your brain doesn't work like this, and the difference matters. What your brain actually does. When you encounter something, a question, a face, a situation, a problem, your brain doesn't run it through once and spit out an answer. It runs it through repeatedly. The same brain cells fire again and again and again, but each time they fire, the pattern of connections that's active is slightly different. The brain is exploring. Each time it loops, more of the relevant memories get woken up, more related concepts come online, more of the context gets woven in. The first time the loop runs, the output is hazy. You don't have a clear thought yet. You have a vague sense of something. The second time, it's a little clearer. The fifth time, clearer still. By the time you have what feels like a thought, your brain has actually iterated on the question many times, with each iteration adding more refinement to what eventually becomes the thing you consciously experience. This is why thinking takes time. It's not that you're slow, it's that your brain is literally doing many passes on the same question before it shows you the result. Your brain doesn't think in one step, it thinks in loops. The emotional dial that nobody told you about. Here's where it gets interesting. The loops aren't all the same. They're modulated by something, and that something is your emotional state. Think of your emotional state as a kind of dial, not the conscious feeling you can name, happy, sad, angry, but the deeper autonomic state of your nervous system. Are you calm, activated, frightened, relaxed? That's whole body state, and that is the dial. The dial determines which connections light up during each loop. The same brain, the same memories, the same knowledge, but the dial controls which paths get explored. This is why the same memory recalled in different emotional states feels like a different memory. You think about something painful when you're calm, and it has one shape. You think about that same thing when you're anxious, and it has a completely different shape. Same memory, different dial setting, different reconstruction. This is also why mood altering practices actually work. When you meditate, when you take a deep breath, when you go for a walk, when you sit in a sauna, when you cold plunge, what you're doing is moving the dial. You're not adding new information to your brain. You're letting the brain reconstruct what it already knows under a different dial setting, and what comes out the other side can be radically different. This is also why some of your best insights arrive when you stop trying to think. The dial is in a different position than when you were grinding the problem. The brain accesses the same content from a different angle, and suddenly the answer is there. It was always there. You just needed a different angle. So how does the brain decide when it's done? If your brain is running these loops continuously, there has to be something that decides when a loop is done enough to deliver the result to your conscious mind as a thought or a feeling or a knowing. There is. Brain scientists have named it the salience network. It's a specific set of regions, including a structure called the anterior insula, which sits right behind your ears, deep in the brain, and another called the dorsal anterior cingulate, which sits right behind the middle of your forehead. Plus the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system. This network is your brain's judge. It watches the loops as they run, and at some point it decides, that's good enough, ship it to consciousness. That's the moment a thought becomes a thought, an idea becomes an idea, a knowing becomes a knowing. You don't experience the loops, you only experience the moment the judge gives the green light. This is why thinking feels instantaneous from the inside, even though it took multiple passes. You only see the finished output. The work was invisible. Now, intuition, what it actually is. Intuition has always been confusing because it produces certainty without visible reasoning. You just know something. You can't explain why, but the knowing feels solid. People have argued for centuries about whether to trust it. Some traditions say intuition is divine guidance. Others say it's superstitious garbage. Most people end up somewhere in between, trusting their gut when it's convenient and second-guessing it when it's not. Here's what intuition actually is mechanically. Intuition is the loop completing successfully on a converged answer. That's it. Your brain has run the question through many loops, the relevant context has been woven in, the relevant memories have been activated, the relevant patterns have been recognized, and the loop has stabilized on an answer. The judge fires the green light, your conscious mind gets the result. You feel certain because the body knows the loop converged. The insula, that brain region behind your ears, is wired into your gut, your heart, your whole body, and it reports the felt quality of the convergence as a body feeling. That's why intuition feels rather than thinks. The signal isn't a thought, it's a body knowing, because the brain region delivering it is wired to your body. This is real. Intuition is the loops actually working. But here's the problem. Remember the dial? The dial controls which connections light up during the loops. When you're calm, parasympathetic dominant, low cortisol, slow, steady breath, the dial moves freely. Different loops can access different parts of your knowledge. The loops can run as many times as needed. The judge waits for actual convergence before firing the green light. When you're afraid, sympathetic activated, high cortisol, shallow, fast breath, the dial gets stuck. It locks in one position, the threat position. The loops keep running, but they keep accessing the same fear-relevant slice of your knowledge. And worse, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection module, gets sensitized. It starts firing the judge's green light earlier, before the loops have actually converged on anything useful. When your amygdala is sensitized by chronic stress, your judge fires too soon. The first hazy first pass output gets shipped to consciousness as if it were a converged conclusion. You feel the same certainty you'd feel from real intuition because the judge fired, and the judge's firing is what produces felt certainty regardless of what the loops actually did. This means fear-driven reactions feel exactly like genuine intuition from the inside. Both produce the same body knowing, the same gut certainty, the same, I just know this is right. You can't distinguish them from inside the experience. Both fire the same salience network, both arrive as felt rather than thought. But one is the loop actually working, and the other is the loop being short-circuited by a stressed-out threat detector. This is why chronic fear people trust their gut and produce systematically terrible outcomes. Their gut isn't lying to them in some abstract sense. The gut is faithfully reporting that the salience network fired. The salience network is faithfully reporting that the threshold was crossed. What the gut can't tell them is that the threshold was crossed by panic instead of genuine convergence. How to tell the difference? You can't tell from inside the certainty itself. Both feel identical, but you can tell from external signals. 1. How fast did it arrive? Real intuition takes time. The loops have to run. Even when it feels fast, it's at least a few seconds of holding the question before the answer arrives. Often longer. Overnight, after a walk, after sleeping on it, or months, days, weeks, decades, years, converging on a single idea. Fear-driven reaction arrives instantly. The amygdala has short-circuited the loop. If you got certainty in less than a second, suspect saturation, not convergence. That's reactivity, not responsiveness. 2, what does it do under questioning? If you ask yourself, why do I know this? And the answer gets clearer and more detailed as you sit with the question, that's convergence. The loops keep running and they have more to say. If asking why makes you feel defensive, irritated, or doubles down without adding new substance, that's saturation. The reaction can't articulate itself because there was no real reasoning underneath. 3, what's your body doing? When you got the certainty, was your body calm? Slow breath, relaxed shoulders, soft jaw? That's the parasympathetic state. That's the configuration where intuition works. Or was your body activated? Tight chest, fast breath, urgency, heat in the face? That's sympathetic activation. That's the configuration where the amygdala has hijacked the judge. 4, how has your gut's track record been? If your gut has been reliably right for years about people, situations, decisions, you have working intuition. Trust it. If your gut has been right when you're calm and wrong when you're stressed, the calm version is real intuition and the stressed version is reactive panic wearing intuition's clothes. 5, does the gut knowing align with what you'd conclude if you actually thought it through? Real intuition is the brain doing the thinking quietly and delivering the result. So if you sit down and reason through the same question carefully, real intuition usually agrees with the careful reasoning, because the careful reasoning is just doing slowly what the loops did fast. Reactive panic disagrees with careful reasoning. The careful reasoning would notice the evidence the panic is ignoring. Why every wisdom tradition has said the same thing. Here's what's striking. Every contemplative tradition across every culture has independently taught the same sequence. First, settle the body, then trust the knowing. Be still and know that I am God. Buddhists call it upekkha, equanimity, before insight meditation. Stoics called it apatheia, freedom from disturbing passions, before virtue perception. Christian contemplatives called it purgation, before illumination. Sufis called it fana, annihilation of the small self before bhaka, subsisting in God. Hindu traditions called it vairagya, dissipation, before viveka, discrimination. Tantric traditions call it samadhi, concentration, before prana, wisdom. These traditions developed independently with no shared technical vocabulary in completely different cultures. And they all converged on the same instruction. Calm the body first, then you can trust what comes through. What were they all noticing? They were noticing that the dial position determines whether the loops work. They didn't have brain scans or neuroscience papers. They just noticed empirically. across generations of practitioners that knowing from a calm body is reliable and knowing from a fearful body is not. The traditions were correct. The mechanism is what we just walked through. And one more thing. You've probably heard somewhere along the way about the default mode network, the brain network that's been blamed for rumination, anxiety, depression. The story usually goes, the DMN is the bad guy. It's the network that keeps thinking when you don't want it to. Mindfulness practices quiet the DMN. Plant medicines shut down the DMN. Stop your DMN and you stop suffering. The story is almost right, but it's structurally backwards and the correction matters. The DMN isn't a separate system. The DMN is the brain's iteration loop. The same loop that produces real intuition when the dial is free is what produces rumination when the dial is stuck. You don't need to defeat the DMN. You can't actually. Turning it off would mean turning off your ability to think. What you need is to free the dial. This reminds me of all the people trying to get rid of their ego. That effort in itself is egotistical. That's what every practice that actually works does. Meditation frees the dial. Breathwork frees the dial. Cold exposure frees the dial. Time in nature frees the dial. Real human connection frees the dial. Plant medicines, used with care, free the dial. Walking, dancing, swimming, singing, all free the dial. These practices look unrelated. They are mechanically the same practice. They all settle the body out of fear lock, which lets the dial move, which lets the brain's iteration loop run the way it was designed to. When people say, my mind quieted down after meditation, that's not the loop stopping. The loop kept running. The dial just started moving. Same architecture, same neurons, different output because the input was different. The brain is innocent. The fear is what's hijacking it. What this means for you. 3 practical takeaways. 1, your intuition is real. It works. It's been faithfully reporting your brain's actual cognition for your whole life. When it's been reliable, that wasn't luck. That was your loops actually converging on real answers and your body delivering the result. 2, when you're afraid, your intuition is not the thing speaking to you. The thing that feels like intuition when you're stressed is panic wearing intuition's clothing. It is the amygdala short-circuiting the judge. It is the dial stuck in one position. Don't trust it. Settle the body first, then check. 3, the path to better thinking isn't more thinking, it's a calmer body. Anything that calms your body, sleep, breath work, cold water, walking, real food, fewer screens, less rumination fuel, less artificial fear, improves your decision making more than any amount of harder thinking would. The hardware is already there. The hardware is working. It just can't run cleanly when the dial is locked. This is why so many of the most effective interventions for cognition are body interventions. Move your body, breathe slowly, get outside, get enough sleep. Boring advice that everyone has heard that nobody implements because it doesn't feel like enough. But it's not boring once you understand the mechanism. It's the only thing that actually works because it's working on the dial that controls the loops. The strange final piece. Once you really start paying attention to this in yourself, you notice something else. Your best thoughts, the ones that turned out to be right, the ones that changed your life, the ones that you remember years later, they didn't come through from harder thinking. They came from a calm body. They came from a walk, a shower, the moment before sleep, a long drive, a hot bath, sitting somewhere quiet without a phone. What you remember as your moments of breakthrough were moments when the dial was free. The reason intuition has a reputation for being quasi-mystical is that it actually does feel that way from inside. The loop's complete, the judge fires, the body delivers the answer, and you can't trace back through the work the brain did because the work was invisible, subconscious. But it's not mystical, it's not supernatural, it's just how your brain actually works when you let it work. You're not crazy for trusting your gut sometimes. You're not crazy for distrusting it other times. You've been navigating the difference between converged intuition and saturated panic your whole life, usually without the vocabulary to articulate why one felt different from the other. Now you have the vocabulary. Use it. Calm your body. Let the loops run. Watch the difference. The brain knew what it was doing all along. It just couldn't do it when you were too afraid to let it. And the framework that I'm releasing is called ISRI. It's a scientific thing, and I'll be releasing it soon. Essentially, everything is stored in the brain holographically, and your emotional state is the position of the laser beam to have the holographic projection of your thoughts be different. So your emotions regulate your thoughts, and you can have the same thought in a different emotional state, and it has a completely different semantic meaning. And there it is, folks. Human cognition unlocked, intuition unlocked, how your entire mind works, how thoughts are formed, why the same thought is different in different emotional states. We're doing this, folks. We're here. We are waking up to ourselves and how we work. It's so glorious. I love all of you. Be well and go calm that body. Vagal toning, chanting, meditating, breathing. Just calm and peace. It's not about working harder. It's not about thinking harder or more. It's not about solving problems. It's about maintaining coherence and calm and peace, like everyone throughout all the ages has been trying to tell us this whole time. That's it. You can think clearly. Your mind will do the loops, and it will build the pictures in our minds, and it will give us the solutions handed on silver platters right in front of our faces automatically while we're just chilling and enjoying and playing and flowing, going with the flow. I love you. I love you. You're here. There's nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. The only thing to fear is fear itself. Be well.